Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we are undertaking what I can only just describe as a monumental culinary exploration.
It really is. We're looking at a huge collection of insights into Mexican and Tex-Mex cooking.
And it's everything. I mean, we've got the foundational staples, those complex, multi-hour regional dishes, and even those, highly sought-after restaurant copycat recipes.
Which everyone loves.
Yeah.
But this is so much more than just a list of ingredients. It's really a masterclass in technique.
That's the mission, right? To get past the what and into the why.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's about understanding the process. When you see the sheer dedication that goes into a traditional Mole Poblano or, say, the 6-hour prep for Menudo, you just get a whole new level of appreciation for these dishes.
It really elevates them beyond, the quick service Tex-Mex chains.
For sure. And the scope here is just wild. We're going from something as simple as arroz blanco,
A basic white rice.
all the way to these incredibly complex pork preparations and sauces that take literally half a day.
So for you, listening, this is basically a complete education in the foundations of this amazing world of flavor. Okay, let's get into it. Let's start with the absolute basics, the grains and beans that set the stage.
The foundation of the meal.
When you're putting together a Mexican or Tex-Mex meal, rice is so often that foundation. And what I found fascinating right away is the difference in technique, even between two pretty simple rice dishes.
Let's start with arroz blanco, the white rice. It's sort of the clean slate, the pristine starting point.
And the material really emphasizes that the technique here is all about keeping that pure white color and getting a perfect, fluffy, non-sticky texture.
Yep. You start with a classic 2-to-1 liquid to rice ratio, so 3 cups of broth for 1.5 cups of long grain rice. But the pre-cooking part is what's really critical.
And that's where the 3 tablespoons of olive oil come in.
Yeah.
The instruction is so specific: cook the rice in the oil for 4 minutes. But, and this is in bold, do not let it brown.
So why is that so important? Why no browning?
Well, browning is the Maillard reaction, right?
Definitely.
Gives you that nutty, toasty flavor that you actually want in, say, a Spanish rice.
Right. But not here. Here the goal is different. You're using the oil to coat each grain of rice.
To keep them from sticking together later on.
Exactly. It helps them absorb the broth evenly and stay separate, all while keeping the flavor profile totally neutral.
And after that, you toss in the diced onion and garlic for just a minute.
Just a minute. Long enough to soften them, but not long enough for them to caramelize or, color the rice.
So it's this really delicate dance of preserving aroma and texture. And then once the liquid goes in and it boils, the cooking itself is this precise 2-stage process.
15 minutes on low heat, then a quick stir, then another 15 minutes covered, off the heat.
Letting it steam in its own residual heat. That double steam at the end must be what guarantees that perfect fluffiness.
Now let's compare that very delicate method to arroz con pollo, rice with chicken. It's a complete 180 in terms of intent.
Oh, absolutely. We're moving from a neutral canvas to a dish that's meant to be intensely flavored, where the rice is a major contributor to the final taste.
The spice list alone tells you everything you need to know. All of a sudden, we're bringing in turmeric.
A 1/4 teaspoon for that color and earthiness.
And 1/2 teaspoon of cumin powder for that essential warm note, plus a teaspoon of chili powder, black pepper. It's a different world.
A whole different universe. And the process reflects that, instead of trying to prevent browning.
You're actively encouraging it. The vegetables, onions, peppers, garlic are sautéed with all those spices until they're tender. Then, crucially, the rice is stirred right into that mixture until it turns slightly brown.
So you're building that nutty toasted flavor right into the foundation, the very thing we just avoided.
You're doing it on purpose this time. The toasting helps the rice grains stand up to all the strong spices, the tomato and the chicken.
And speaking of the chicken, that gets pan-fried first. A pound of chicken breast fillets, browned for about 10 minutes.
Then the rice mixture comes to a boil, you place the chicken cutlets right on top, and everything cooks together for the last 20 minutes. It's this incredibly dynamic, flavor-packed one-pot meal.
All just by flipping that one-core rice technique on its head. It's brilliant.
Okay, let's switch gears from rice to corn. The prep for corn tortillas really highlights how specific ingredients create that perfect texture.
Yeah, it's not just flour and water. The base is masa harina, salt, water, and 2 teaspoons of vegetable shortening.
And that shortening is a really important detail.
It is. You're not just making a simple paste. You boil the water and the shortening together first to melt the fat. And then you combine that liquid with the masa harina.
And the dough needs a good 5 minutes of kneading until it's perfectly smooth. So what's the shortening actually doing in there chemically?
Well, it's an inhibitor, basically. It gets in the way of the gluten structure forming too tightly, which is what happens with just flour and water.
And that would give you a chewy or even a brittle tortilla.
Exactly. The fat makes the dough more pliable, way easier to roll out, and ultimately gives you a much softer tortilla when you cook it.
And the cooking is fast and hot. Half a minute per side on a hot iron cast skillet.
And, of course, once you've got those fresh tortillas, the notes give you a super simple path to making your own tortilla chips.
Classic technique here. Cut the tortillas into wedges, get them into about 1 inch of hot oil, and flash fry them for just a minute until they're golden brown.
The key seems to be draining and cooling them quickly. That's what locks in the crunch before you store them.
Absolutely. Okay, moving from corn to beans, we get this really fascinating contrast and commitment.
Yeah, the difference between a quick 15-minute side and this 45-minute layered casserole dish.
The recipe for El Palo Loco Mexican beans is just amazing for its speed. 28 ounces of pinto beans, some water, and serrano chiles.
And you use them both whole and ground.
Right. You heat some oil, cook the whole chile until it's tender, then add the ground chile, water, and beans. Simmer for 10, maybe 15 minutes. Done. It's all about that fast, clean heat from the chiles.
But then you look at frijoles rancheros, and it's a whole different story. This is complex flavor engineering.
That's the perfect way to put it. This isn't just beans and water. It's using cured meat, alcohol, and acid to layer flavors.
It's a real event dish. You start by rendering 8 slices of bacon until they're crisp.
Creating that all-important bacon fat base. Then the aromatics onions, garlic, 2 chopped jalapenos get sautéed right in that incredibly flavorful fat.
That's your foundation. Then you combine that savory mix with 32 ounces of pinto beans, red chiles, tomato paste, and a 1/4 cup of beer and a tablespoon of vinegar.
Beer and vinegar, what do they bring to the party?
Well, the beer adds this yeasty, malty depth, and the vinegar gives it that sharp, acidic kick you need to cut through the richness of the bacon fat and the heaviness of the beans. It just balances the whole profile.
And the final technique is key. It's baked, uncovered in a casserole dish at 375 for 45 minutes.
Baking instead of simmering on the stovetop. That lets the flavors really meld and gives it that slightly crusted top. It's so much more robust than the quick stovetop version.
That low, steady heat is the perfect transition to our next section, because when we start talking about big cuts of meat, especially beef, the technique used to tenderize and flavor them is, well, it's everything.
Let's kick it off with fajitas, the ultimate Tex-Mex showstopper. We've got 2 versions to compare: an authentic Tex-Mex approach and the Chili's copycat.
The authentic Tex-Mex recipe is just a masterclass in aggressive short-term marination. It's all about texture and getting an intense char.
And it uses a dual-phase marinade. First up is a dry rub.
Sliced onions, chili powder, cumin, garlic, and interestingly, pickled jalapenos, all rubbed really vigorously into 2 pounds of steak.
And then comes the liquid, which I found fascinating. It's lemon juice combined with 2 tablespoons of the pickling liquid from the jalapenos.
Right, most people would just reach for lime juice. So why the pickling liquid? Why is that a must-have? I mean, acid is acid, isn't it?
Not exactly. Lemon juice gives you that pure, bright acidity that starts to break down the surface proteins. But the jalapeno pickling liquid, the brine, adds 2 extra things: salt and a fermented flavor.
Ah, so it's adding umami, a complexity that you just don't get from plain citrus juice.
Precisely. It adds this savory richness that really penetrates the surface during that quick 1-hour marination. It's a shortcut to a much deeper flavor profile.
That makes so much sense. And it works with the chili and cumin from the rub. Then the cooking is just pure theater.
High heat grilling, 3 minutes aside, and you're basting it with a mix of liquid smoke, soy, and corn oil.
So you get that beautiful char on the outside, but the inside stays pinkish. Perfect.
Now let's pivot to the chili steak fajitas. It's a totally different flavor philosophy.
Completely. The marinade here is soy sauce, water, honey, Worcestershire, garlic, and ground ginger.
Wait, ginger and that much soy sauce? That feels like it's leaning, I don't know, almost into an Asian fusion profile. Is that just an evolution for a mass market palate?
I think it's a very calculated evolution. See, traditional Tex-Mex gets that deep, savory flavor from slow cooking or heavy cumin and chili powder.
But soy sauce and Worcestershire give you an instant umami hit.
An intense, salty umami boost that penetrates super quickly. And the ginger adds this contrasting, spicy brightness that makes the flavor really pop and stand out in a restaurant setting. It hits all those notes, savory, sweet, bright, all at once.
And the preparation is all about speed, too. The marinated steak is sliced into strips, stir-fried with peppers and onions.
And then you add a bit of the reserved marinade at the very end to glaze everything. It gives it that immediate high gloss finish. So different from the dry rub, high char method.
Okay, let's move from those quick fire cuts to dishes designed for really tough muscle. Here it's all about low, slow, and moist cooking.
Look no further than the burritos con huevos, which uses flank steak. And flank steak is famous for being flavorful, but, notoriously tough.
All those long muscle fibers and collagen. So the big question is, how do you effectively break that all down?
The instructions give us the answer. Patient simmering.
A lot of patience, Erin.
Absolutely. The flank steak is seasoned, browned in oil, and then you add hot water until the meat is totally submerged. Cover it tightly and let it simmer over gentle heat for 2 to 2.5 hours.
And that long, slow simmer is all about the collagen, right? What's happening inside the meat?
It is 100% about the collagen. That connective tissue needs the extended period of heat and moisture, ideally somewhere between 160 and 180 degrees Fahrenheit, to slowly dissolve and convert into gelatin.
If you cook it too hot or too fast, the muscle fibers just seize up and squeeze all the moisture out.
And you get tough, stringy meat. But at that low, slow simmer for over 2 hours, the tissue literally melts, transforming that tough steak into this incredibly rich, easily shredded meat.
And that tender meat becomes the base for the filling, mixed with peppers, onions, jalapeno, tomatoes, a ton of cheddar cheese, and 10 large eggs, all cooked up like scrambled eggs. It sounds amazing.
A similar idea shows up in the carne asada, which uses stew meat. The depth there starts with bacon fat.
You saute the meat, garlic, and grated onion in that bacon fat until it's browned.
And then the simmering liquid is built from water, beef bouillon granules, tomato sauce, pepper, and cumin. Again, it's a long, patient simmer until the meat is fork tender.
But the finishing technique for the carne asada is what really makes it. Near the end, you stir flour directly into the simmering liquid.
Right. It's a simple thickener, but it transforms that savory broth into this luxurious, rich gravy that just perfectly coats the tender meat.
Okay, before we leave beef, we have to touch on the ground beef for standard enchiladas. Here, the technique is focused on making the sauce a structural element.
It really is. The key to that classic red enchilada sauce is starting with a roux flour cooked in shortening.
You add the ground beef, cook it through, and then mix in tomato sauce and chili seasoning until you get that perfect gravy consistency.
And that consistency is vital. The instructions say you have to dip each corn tortilla individually into that sauce until it's completely saturated before you fill and roll it.
So the sauce isn't just a topping. It's an internal stabilizer. It's what keeps the tortilla from drying out and cracking in the oven. That's a great tip.
Okay, let's switch gears completely. Pork and poultry. These are lighter proteins, and they often need different marination strategies. You see a lot more sweet, acidic, or even alcoholic elements.
The Chi-Chi's pork tenderloin with bourbon sauce is a perfect example. It's a complex, savory sweet marinade designed for an overnight soak.
The liquid is this really potent mix. We've got bourbon, soy sauce, Worcestershire, onion, honey, Dijon mustard, pepper, and a can of diced tomatoes and green chilies.
That bourbon and honey combination is the signature, I think. You get savory depth from the soy and Worcestershire, a tang from the tomatoes, sweetness from the honey.
And the alcohol helps carry all those flavors deep into the meat over that 8-hour refrigeration period. And the finishing step is really practical.
I love this part. You broil the pork tenderloin, but you take the reserve marinade and boil it separately in a saucepan.
It's brilliant. Boiling it makes it safe to eat, and it also concentrates all those complex flavors, turning it into a rich, syrupy finishing sauce.
Then we have carnitas de amigos. This one uses a really quick marinade followed by a complex glaze.
The pork tenderloin medallions marinate for only an hour in soy, white wine, and pineapple juice.
That pineapple juice is a classic trick. The enzymes in it, the bromelain, act as a super fast tenderizer.
It works on the surface really quickly while the wine and soy add the flavor, but the real work is happening with the glaze.
Right, which you prepare at the same time. You simmer churro syrup, chicken stock, and chili sauce, seasoned with Tabasco and garlic powder, for about 30 minutes until it reduces to a thick glaze.
The cooking phase is like a little assembly line. You dredge the marinated pork in flour, cook it, saute it with mushrooms, drain off all the oil.
And only then do you add the pre-made glaze and simmer for just 2 minutes to coat everything. It's a way to get that thick, intense glazed texture without having to reduce a marinade in the pan.
Now, let's contrast those wet glazed methods with chili carnitas, which is all about a dry rub and the magic of extremely low heat.
This one uses cubed boneless pork, rubbed with a simple but powerful mix. New Mexican ground red chili, cumin, cilantro, garlic, salt, and pepper.
After an hour, the cubes are baked at just 250 degrees Fahrenheit for 90 minutes.
That is a wild technique. 90 minutes at 250. How does that make it crispy? Isn't that temperature too low for browning?
Well, the heat is low enough that the muscle fibers don't seize up, so the inside stays tender. But over that long period, the low, dry heat slowly renders out the internal fat and moisture.
So the surface, coated in that chili rub, slowly dries out and crisps up without burning.
Exactly. You get that amazing tender on the inside, crisp on the outside texture that defines great carnitas, but you're using thyme instead of high-heat frying.
Our last protein here is chicken Acapulco, and this one just throws the rule book out the window. The ingredient list is unexpected.
It really is. It starts off pretty traditional. You brown 4 pounds of chicken pieces and set them aside.
Then you build the flavor base by sautéing onion, garlic, and half a pound of chorizo sausage with some peppercorns. That spicy fat from the chorizo is the key.
That's your flavor foundation. Then you add broth and canned tomatoes and chilies. The chicken goes back in to simmer, but the real surprise is what gets added later.
Diced carrots, zucchini, whole jalapenos, and a quarter cup of raisins.
Raisins. It sounds so strange, but it's essential for balance. The chorizo is giving you all this heavy spice and fat. The tomatoes bring the acidity.
And the raisins introduce this concentrated, dark sweetness that stops the dish from being one-note savory or too acidic. It pulls everything together.
And it's finished with fresh orange slices as a garnish, just to reinforce that complex, fruity-savory combination.
Okay, let's move into the specialty dishes, the ones that really highlight either speed, convenience, or some deep technical baking. We'll start with those famous restaurant copycats.
The Chi-Chi's baked chicken chimichangas are a perfect example of clever flavor engineering. The filling is shredded chicken, sautéed onion and garlic, salsa, chili powder, cumin, and half a teaspoon of ground cinnamon.
In a savory chicken filling. That little hint of unexpected warmth is so often the secret weapon in restaurant food. It adds a complexity that you wouldn't normally think to add at home.
And the assembly is pretty standard, but the cooking technique is where the brilliance lies. It solves the problem of how to get that deep-fried texture without the mess.
Right, they're not fried. They're brushed with olive oil and baked at a scorching 450 degrees Fahrenheit for 20 to 25 minutes, and you have to turn them every 5 minutes.
That extreme high heat is absolutely necessary. It rapidly dehydrates the surface of the tortilla, and that thin layer of oil helps it get that golden brown crust without soaking the filling. The constant turning ensures it's crispy all over.
Now, in total contrast, Chi-Chi's seafood enchiladas are all about convenience and the microwave.
The sauce is completely unique. It's a white sauce built on a base of canned cream of chicken soup mixed with milk, onions, and a tiny bit of nutmeg.
That canned soup gives you an instant, thick, creamy seasoned base. No roux required.
The filling is half of that soup base mixed with crab meat real, or imitation it says, and Monterey Jack cheese. And to keep the tortillas from cracking, you microwave them for about a minute beforehand to make them pliable.
And the final cooking is pure speed. You cover the assembled enchiladas and the rest of the soup mix and just microwave them on high for 12 to 14 minutes. It's a modern steamed approach to a classic.
Let's move to maybe the most beloved Chi-Chi's item of all, the sweet corn cake. This recipe is all about precision baking to get that signature moist, almost custard-like texture.
The ingredients are a mix of cornmeal and masa harina, heavy cream, sugar, butter, and crucially, coarsely chopped frozen corn. But the technique is the real story.
It absolutely is. The batter is poured into a square pan, covered with foil, and then placed into a larger pan that's filled with hot water. A bain-marie or a water bath.
Okay, so why is the water bath so essential here? Why not just bake it like a regular cake?
Because the ingredients are so delicate, especially with the high moisture from the cream and corn. Direct oven heat would be too harsh. It would make the edges and bottom set way too quickly and dry out, and you'd get a gritty or curdled texture.
So the water bath ensures the heat is gentle and moist. It keeps the temperature even and allows the cake to set slowly from the outside in.
And that's how you get that perfectly tender, moist finish.
Okay, before we dive into the really complex sauces, there's a simple side. El Chico Mexican Restaurant Relish. This is a quick pickle that requires no cooking. Just patience.
It's the perfect little flavor bomb. Sliced carrots, sliced jalapenos with their juice, cubed onions, water, vinegar, garlic, oregano, and salt.
And you just mix it all together and stick it in the fridge for at least 24 hours.
That's it. It's flavor by passive diffusion. The vinegar and salt slowly penetrate and soften the veggies, while everything else infuses the liquid. So simple.
Now we get to the sauces. And this section really shows the full spectrum of culinary commitment, from instant blending to multi-hour dedication.
For instant gratification, you've got the casa ole green sauce, zero heat. It's all about the richness of the ingredients.
4 avocados, a pint of sour cream, 3 ounces of cream cheese, Rotel tomatoes, canned green chilies, garlic powder, and lemon juice.
All blended until it's smooth. It's just immediate, rich depth from all that fat in the avocado, sour cream, and cream cheese, with a quick hit of heat from the canned stuff.
Moving up the commitment ladder, we have a chipotle sauce, which does require cooking.
This one starts by soaking dried chipotles until they're soft. Then the savory base comes from rendering bacon and cooking onion until the bacon is crispy.
And that smoky bacon fat becomes the flavor vehicle. The chiles, tomatoes, beef broth, carrot, celery, cilantro, all get added to that. It's a much heartier vegetable-forward sauce.
And now, the mole, the absolute pinnacle of flavor synthesis. We have 2 versions here. Emeril's modern, streamlined sauce, and the colossal undertaking of the traditional mole poblano.
Let's start with Emeril's. It's a modern approach that uses high heat roasting to get deep flavors quickly.
Right. You're roasting nuts, pine, and pistachio, along with onion and poblano peppers, at 400 degrees for about 15 minutes.
That roasting concentrates the sugars and adds that charred, smoky element really fast.
Then you take those roasted ingredients and put them in a processor with chili seasoning, cumin, vinegar, tamarind paste, dark cane syrup, and a whole cup of olive oil.
The tamarind and cane syrup are key there for balancing the spice with some sweet and sour notes.
For sure. You puree that until it's creamy, then you whisk it with heavy cream and chicken broth in a saucepan, boil it, and simmer for just 2 minutes. It's complex, it's rich, but it's built for a modern kitchen.
The traditional Mole Poblano, though, that is an entirely different animal. This is ancestral cooking. The time and process are just breathtaking.
It starts with the chiles. 4 dry mulatto chiles are rinsed, dried, and then fried in oil for 5 minutes, constantly turning them.
So why fry them instead of just soaking them?
Frying them concentrates the earthy flavor, it releases their oils, and it helps them break down completely when you puree them. It makes the final color and flavor so much deeper.
And that becomes your first puree, which you have to strain through a fine sieve. Just step 1.
Then comes the second puree, and this is where the magic really happens. You've got tomato, garlic, and onion pulsed together. Then you add separately fried bread, blanched almonds, tortillas, raisins, sesame seeds, cloves, peppercorns, cinnamon, and anise seeds.
That is a staggering list.
Yeah.
The bread, almonds, and tortillas are for thickening and nutty depth.
And the raisins, sesame seeds, and all those spices like clove and cinnamon provide the high, sweet, aromatic notes you need to balance the intense earthiness of the chiles. It is the definition of layered complexity.
And the process continues. You cook the onion mixture, then add the chili puree, then gradually pour in 4 cups of chicken stock.
And finally, the chocolate. 2 ounces of semi-sweet chocolate and a tablespoon of sugar go in until they're dissolved. The chocolate isn't for sweetness, it's for bitterness and depth.
And then begins the marathon simmer. An hour and 45 minutes covered, then another 30 minutes uncovered to thicken. A total simmer time of 2 hours and 15 minutes after all that prep.
You simply cannot rush a mole poblano. That's the time it takes for all those thousands of flavor compounds to properly marry and become one unified sauce.
If the 2-hour simmer of the mole was a commitment, then menudo is the ultimate test of patience and really ancestral technique.
Oh, for sure. Menudo is a true labor of love. It requires a 6-hour commitment just to get the meat texture right.
And we're talking about cuts of meat that are incredibly tough to begin with. 2.5 pounds of tripe and half a calf's foot.
These cuts are loaded with collagen and need serious pretreatment. You cut them up, cover them in cooled water, and add 1/3 of a cup of vinegar. And they have to sit like that for 3 hours.
Why is that vinegar soak so crucial for these particular cuts?
It does 2 things. First, it's a deep clean. Tripe and calf's foot can have strong odors, and the acetic acid in the vinegar neutralizes them. Second, it starts the tenderizing process, loosening up that dense collagen before you even apply heat.
And then you rinse them thoroughly.
Very thoroughly. Then they go in a large pot with 3 quarts of water, onion, and garlic. And it simmers for 6 hours.
And it's not a set it and forget it kind of simmer either. The material stresses that you have to skim the foam off the surface regularly.
Constant interaction. It's essential for a clean, flavorful broth. And the final ingredients, the hominy and the red chili sauce, don't go in until the last hour so they don't turn to mush.
That whole 6-hour process is just what's required to get that meltingly tender, almost gelatinous texture from those tough cuts.
Okay, for something savory that's a lot faster, let's look at huevos rancheros.
Wow.
Here, the sauce has to be thick enough to actually hold the eggs.
The sauce is based on sautéed onions and garlic, tomatoes, and canned green chiles. After everything is in, it simmers uncovered for 5 to 10 minutes.
And that uncovered simmer is the key. You're evaporating water to thicken the sauce just enough.
Meanwhile, the tortillas are brushed with oil and baked at 350 for about 10 minutes to get them crispy.
And the final technique is so precise. You carefully slide the eggs into that simmering sauce, cover the pan, and cook for just 3 to 5 minutes.
Until the whites are set, but the yolks are still runny, the sauce gently poaches the eggs.
Then you serve them on the crispy tortillas, topped with more sauce and cheese. It's perfect.
Let's finish up our deep dive with desserts, where the commitment is less about time and more about mastering, thermodynamics.
You cannot talk about Tex-Mex desserts without dissecting El Torito's deep-fried ice cream. This isn't just a recipe. It's a physics problem that you solve with food.
It's a multi-stage process, and it's all designed to make that ice cream core stable enough to survive boiling oil.
Step 1. Freeze balls of chocolate chip ice cream for at least 2 hours until they're rock solid. Then you make the coating. Crushed 4-grain cereal flakes, sugar, and cinnamon.
And the crucial step is the double coating. This creates a thermal barrier.
Exactly. You roll the frozen ice cream ball in the cereal mix. Then you dip it in an egg wash. Then you roll it in the cereal mix again, pressing firmly.
And then it goes back in the freezer for 4 to 6 hours until it's absolutely solid.
And that deep, intense freeze is what gives it thermal inertia,
The key.
building up resistance to temperature change.
It buys you that tiny little window you need to fry the coating without melting the core.
And that window is incredibly small. The flash fry is only 30 to 45 seconds, any longer, and the whole thing is ruined. Even the serving bowl is technically a fried tortilla basket.
Let's contrast that high-speed, high-risk process with the calm technique of classic Mexican flan. This is all about that slow, gentle heat we talked about earlier.
Flan is all about patience. You start by caramelizing sugar and immediately coating the molds before it hardens. The custard itself is condensed milk, whole milk, eggs, extra egg yolks for richness, vanilla, and almond extract.
And then we're back to the water bath. The filled molds are baked at a low 325 degrees for an hour.
That low, moist heat is what prevents the eggs and the custard from scrambling. It's how you get that signature, silky, smooth texture.
For a quicker fried dessert, there's bananas fritas. This one uses firm bananas dipped in beer batter.
The beer batter is a smart move. The carbonation from the beer creates a much lighter, crispier coating than a water-based batter would. Maximum crunch.
And you just finish them with a drizzle of honey and lemon juice and a scoop of ice cream. Simple.
And finally, biscochitos. Traditional cookies that give us a glimpse into older baking traditions. They use a cup of lard or shortening beaten with sugar and an egg.
Then you add flour, baking powder, sweet wine, and most importantly, anise.
Lard, sweet wine, and anise. That's a distinctly robust traditional flavor profile. The lard gives it a different kind of crispness than butter.
You roll them thin, cut them out, sprinkle with cinnamon sugar, and bake. A classic finish.
We have covered such an incredible landscape of commitment and flavor chemistry today, from a bain-marie to a 6-hour simmer.
So what are the big takeaways for you, the listener, after all of this?
I think if you look at the whole collection, the central insight is this profound link between flavor and time, especially when you're dealing with challenging ingredients.
Like the 2.5 hours it takes to turn flank steak into that tender, shreddable meat for the burritos.
Or the 6 hours of simmering and skimming for the tripe in menudo. These techniques exist to transform tough, flavorful, ancestral cuts into something truly sublime. They teach us that quality often requires real dedication.
And we also saw that mastery of flavor layering. You've got the immediate saturation of the fajita marinade using that pickle brine for quick depth.
And on the other end, you have the Mole Poblano spending hours integrating 24 ingredients to create this, alchemical synthesis of sweet, savory, and spicy.
I think the aha moment really comes when you compare the efficiency of the quick hacks like Chi-Chi's using canned soup or the high heat baking for the Chimichangas with the deep investment of the traditional methods.
The quick routes give you pleasant, fast results. The committed processes deliver this historic layered complexity that builds on itself for hours.
It really illustrates that true culinary depth requires either, great simplicity, like the casa oli green sauce relying on fresh, rich ingredients, or painstaking dedication, like the mole.
And that brings up a really important quotient for you at home. We've seen recipes for instant gratification, like the flash-fried banana Sritas, and then we've seen the 6-hour patience of Menudo. Which of these holds the more profound culinary lesson?
The immediate high-risk satisfaction of the flash fry, or the profound guaranteed reward of the long, low simmer.
Our suggestion is this. Find and master one new technique from this collection, whether it's the thermal physics of deep-fried ice cream or just learning to use vinegar to prep tripe. The results, as this material shows, are always, always worth the commitment.
That is the perfect challenge. Thanks for diving deep with us. We'll see you next time.